The real estate in Lagos is a scam. Overpriced buildings, overpriced land. An accountant should be an accountant in a real estate company, not the CEO. Not a shot at anybody. Every single person plays an important role. The background checks on their track record, projects they've handled. You have pools that are like 1 meter by 3 meters. I mean, those should be for kids. But you have a situation where we're just freestyling what we are selling. There is no proper layout. So well-planned estates, drainage, road networks, lighting, waste management, and then even water supply. All this, they must work effectively. But instances where you see those red lines, so they've not gotten building permits. For some of them, they've not done health and safety. For some of them, it's material testing. So they're telling you to stop that project and go and do what is right. I would never invest my money in Nigeria if all those boxes are not ticked. Floor plans should be functional. You don't want somebody passing through your kitchen to go to their bedroom, having a balcony without a door leading to the balcony. When the air quality is compromised, because air cannot easily pass through the buildings because the buildings are just choked up like within a tiny space. Not as if they are not getting approval. They're getting approvals doing the right things. But when they go to site, that's when the magic happens.
Hi faves, welcome to another exciting episode of Dolakba Unscripted. On today's episode, we are going to be dissecting all things real estate investment in Nigeria, the pros, the cons, and everything you need to know before you make that huge investment of yours. Here with me is an expert on this subject matter. Let's welcome the one and only Architect Mafo of Mafo Atelier. Welcome, Architect Mafo, to the Dolakba Unscripted.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
You're welcome. So please kindly introduce yourself.
My name is Mafo Johnson. I am a practicing architect in Lagos. I'm also an interior designer and also handle design and build.
What are your degrees and qualifications as an architect?
Okay, so I hold a BSc in architecture from Covenant University and also a master's degree in architecture, Covenant University.
So what's your overall take on Lagos real estate architecture?
The real estate in Lagos is a scam. When you look at it from a broad picture, it's a scam. Is it the overpriced buildings, overpriced land? Is a scam in general. Another scam is we have accountants as head of real estate companies. An accountant should be an accountant in a real estate company, not the CEO. Not a shot at anybody.
If you are an accountant and you're a CEO of a real estate company, take advice from your real estate professionals that you employ. Because some of them, they have this stuff, but they don't stick to the advice that they are
I think that's because there is no balance between who brings the money and who has the ideas, who has the qualifications. I bring the money, I run things. I'm the one dishing out command. So my architect, I'm not going to listen to the architect because it has to be my own way. So that's why, to a certain extent, companies that have architects at the helm of affairs, as the head of design and construction, you see that those companies dish out better products into the real estate market than those that we have just one individual who is running everything and has no background knowledge about construction, real estate, or thereabouts.
If I heard you right, you're talking about delegating power.
Yes.
And decisions
to
a
very large
professionals.
extent.
Do you have a story that you can share of how there is something in paper and the result is different as a result of the developer?
2 years ago, we had a notable collapse in Lagos.
Yeah.
It was about, I think, it was above 20 floors. And unfortunately, the owner of the project was on site and he was in the building and he was part of the casualties. May his soul rest in peace.
Amen.
But that just goes to show that cutting corners at the end of the day could affect even those that charge out the orders, those that give the matching orders to use substandard materials. Because a background check showed that the engineering company that was handling the project pulled out at a certain point because of the use of substandard materials. And they pulled out. They said, we can't supervise this again. And at the end of the day, money changed hands and they continued with the project. And at the end of the day, you have a situation where the building collapsed. And unfortunately, the owner was part of those that were killed in it. So cutting corners always comes at a cost. It saves cost, but it also comes at a cost. It could be lives, it could be property. At the end of the day, investment could go down the drain. So let's just stick to standard practice.
After hearing this, if I'm an investor and I want to invest in Lagos, how do I ensure that I'm investing in the kind of property and the developer are not people that are going to cut corners? Are there documents that I can ask for or something at all?
First, your architect should be registered with ARCON and NIA. Then your engineer should have the current, they should be registered with current. Then your land surveyor, they should just have the minimum qualifications, and then you must have seen their track record, like projects they've worked on. I see a young graduate and I feel like I can pay him 50K to execute this. He has no knowledge about this. I'm pushing the qualified contractor away because he's charging more for his professional fees.
Oh yeah, that's
and I call an IT student to come and handle a project or just be the site supervisor. He doesn't know anything about iron, doesn't know anything about the quality of materials being used on site. So, and then at the end of the day, as a developer, you're trying to cut costs, but it will come back biting you when you have to maintain, or it could lead to collapse of the structure. So investment has gone down the drain. So at the end of the day, there's never going to be anything like wastage of resources once you deal with professionals, because professionals come in with their own expertise.
professionals
knowledge.
with integrity, basically.
No, definitely. So that's why I said there should be background checks on their track record, projects they've handled.
You made mention of qualifications and all of that.
Yeah.
Now, if I'm somewhere in diaspora, I see a white, beautiful house on the internet. I like it, the space and everything. My family member has gone to inspect, and probably, you know how money exchange and how much is my own percent and all of those things.
Yeah.
And then they're telling you, it's okay. And then you buy a house. For most people, the story is different when they come back. I've seen houses that are bent sideways. I've seen several things. So when do you think is the best time to buy a house like that?
Okay. The best time to buy a house like that is when I am on ground. I personally would never buy a property in Nigeria if I am not on ground to inspect with my eyes. Do a proper search at Alausa. I know that the land documents are genuine. I would never invest my money in Nigeria if all those boxes are not ticked.
So for the building, what are the building permits that I should be looking out for?
There's LAPSCA. Then there's also payments to health and safety. There's some payments you make to the local government. Some of the documents you submit are your survey, tax clearance, and some other documents.
For those documents, do you think people can forge these documents?
Absolutely, definitely. They can be forged. That's why you see somebody buys land and they tell you, oh, they've done the search, everything is clean, everything is good. And then the moment you put the first block on that land, somebody's coming somewhere to say, I have C of O for this property. So where did your own C of O come from? So those are some of the issues that we have in Lagos. Contention over land because you did not go to do proper search. And even, I'm sorry to say this, but some of the people in building control in Alausa, some of them are compromised because money changes hands, and then we're having a situation where I've checked all papers are genuine, and then I come and I see another person is claiming ownership of the same land, and then we're going back and forth in court. So it can be forged. You just need to work with trusted people in the land control and Alausa, basically.
Okay, thank you. So would you recommend that it's best for people to buy land and build themselves?
Absolutely. Because you have the freedom to, especially if it is not within an estate that has like a specific type of typology, you have the freedom to design, choice of color, choice of materials, and also you can regulate you can manage your budget. Like you can have a specific budget and you can work with that budget. Unfortunately, inflation could mess with it at some point, but it's not going to be as bad as when it's handed over to just anybody that calls himself an engineer or an architect or whatever.
Developer. So are you going to say that it's more cost effective to build yourself?
Yes, it's cost effective because you can manage materials, you manage resources.
Manage materials, but does that mean compromising?
No, not compromising. Okay. You can also manage and maintain quality.
Maintaining quality.
Yes. then you can manage, cut costs, and then at the end of the day, you reduce quality, which will also backfire. So there are two ways to go about managing costs. You can do it the right way and you can do it the wrong way.
Have you had issues with workers inside stealing?
Artisans will show you shaggy every single day of the week. So I think the best way to manage them is to just have somebody that you trust. But most times there's that greed that comes in play, and one way or the other, they are trying to make extra bucks. That's why it's good to also compensate them well.
Beautiful,
Yeah,
beautiful.
if you don't compensate your workers, they will show you shaggy. And there is no limit to the amount of shaggy. Bags of cement will be missing. Rods of iron will be missing. Is it nails? They can quote for 15 bags of nails and they only need 2 bags. So at the end of the day, if you don't have somebody that is a storekeeper that you trust,
and then a quantity surveyor, because I believe with a quantity surveyor, there's limits to overquoting that they will make, especially if that person has experience.
yeah, exactly. So a quantity surveyor. That's why in the hierarchy of professionals that are going to work on a project, every single person plays an important role. So for the quantity surveyor now, it's going to help you control cost, and it's also going to regulate excessive buying of materials. So
Beautiful.
you can have the carpenter quote for 500 marine boards, whereas based off the calculation of the QS, we need 120 or 150 max. So they help to regulate all those on site.
So if I want to build myself today, who are the people that I need?
First and foremost, to come up with the design concept, you need an architect. So, but most times for me, I would say you go with a land surveyor. So the surveyor should do the check. Check in allows that, okay, my property is safe. Once you are done with that, then you can work with the architect. So the architect comes up with the concept, you have a design in mind, and then okay, once we're done with the design, that's if it's a duplex, let's say for a duplex now, you have the architect comes up with the architectural drawing. Once it's done, it's okay, you approve. We go to the engineering drawings. So you have the structural, mechanical, and electrical drawings. So after that phase, that's when we now apply to allow SAF for approval. Once you've submitted all the necessary documents, then they will now give you approval and you now start making payments. There are stage payments, different payments, health and safety, there's material testing and also once all that is completed, then they give you an approval and then you can move to site and begin commence.
So I have 2 questions. How long does it take to get those approval?
Okay, so it depends on the scale of the project. So for a residential project, it could take 1 to 2 months.
Okay.
So because it all depends on if you meet the necessary requirements. So if you meet all the requirements, it could be 1 to 3 months for a residential property. But if it is a commercial, it could take as long as 3 to 6 months. That's depending on the scale, because they all have to pass through different offices for approval. So you don't just submit and expect approval immediately. So there's going to be land use analysis and like a whole lot of requirements that your project must meet before it's given the necessary approval.
There are some beautiful architectural designs that you see these days. They are aesthetically pleasing. However, on the long run, they are not functional. For instance, we now have slimmer, longer windows that are not wide in a temperate region, like the sun is scorching hot. You are expecting the resident to dwell on just AC. Now, in terms of functionality, it increases their cooling costs.
Yeah.
And number 2, AC is still different from natural breeze. And let's not even go to the part that there are no trees in the houses that they build these days.
Okay, so first things first, I would say that we are looking at, most times now, we're looking at aesthetics more than the functionality. So you have slimmer windows, but the excuse is always there's total reliance on light. That means we're going to have 247 light. So AC is going to be on 247, but it also has an impact on your health too. So natural is always going to be the best. But we have a situation where we have windows now that you do windows by 0.4 meters, and The normal standard is meant to be 1.2 meters.
1.2 meters.
1.2 meters.
So is that the width or the
No,
length?
that's width and height.
Okay,
It's meant to be
1.2.
1.2 meters.
I don't understand. If I get my measuring tape, it should be 1.2.
Yeah, 1.2 meters. That's 4 feet.
Okay.
Yes.
And then the length as well.
Yeah, 4 feet to 1.2 meters. Once you go to allow sir for your approval, that is what is going to be on paper. We have a situation where on site we use 0.4 meters. And for the approval drawing we submitted to the
1.2.
planning authorities, we put 1.2. So at the end of the day, we say it is more aesthetically pleasing, but it comes at a cost. Natural ventilation is defeated. So once there is no light, because developers will always tell you that, oh, the estate is 247 power.
Still.
But at the end of the day, you're having maybe 10 to 12 hours. So for the remaining 12 hours that you are without light, that means you are dealing with a very hot room because your window is less than 1 foot. So it comes at a detriment even to our own health.
Now, if I see an already made house that I want to buy, aside the permit and none of that, what are those things that I think should be standard?
The stability of the structure.
How do I measure the stability of the structure?
No, you would know when a building is sinking.
Can you tell?
You would know. You can see it. So stability is important to understand the structural integrity of the building because it could cost you your life at the end of the day. If maybe during the construction phase, corners were cut and all. So first things first, understand the structural stability. Then I would say lighting. For me, lighting is very important. So how well lit the house is, functionality of the space. Functionality of the space. So the progression from the living room to the kitchen to the guest bedroom to the main bedroom. So just like we have the hierarchy of spaces, there's the private, there's the semi-private, there's the public space within the room. You don't want somebody passing through your kitchen to go to their bedroom. I've seen situations like that where the guest bedroom, you follow the kitchen to go to the guest bedroom. So naturally, it is not meant to be that. So functionally, the floor plan should be functional. So, and then ventilation is very important. So I would go for a house with larger windows because in the absence of light, I can naturally cool my space. Yeah.
Okay. How about the distance between my compound and the neighbor's compound, especially if it's a fully detached building?
Okay, if it's a fully detached, standard setback should be 3 by the right, 3 by the left, 3 at the back, and 6 in front. But go to Chevron and you see that we are working with 0.5 meter, and in front we're having like 3 or 4 meters. You can hardly park your car in front within your compound. You're having to park on the road. For people that have 3 cars, you have to park some on the road. So all those affect the quality of life because even the air quality is compromised because air cannot easily pass through the buildings because the buildings are just choked up like within a tiny space. So on a plot now, you're having 1 in front, 2 behind. These are areas that allow such to come in. Such kind of development should not even be given approval because it's going to affect the quality of life in the long run.
So maybe they actually don't give such approval though. It's just they do what they want and whatever. Because I see buildings with those red lines. What does it mean? You see ATCDA, things like that.
Okay, so
AS, blah, blah.
So for instances where you see those red lines, so they've not gotten building permits. For some of them, they've not done health and safety. For some of them, it's material testing. So they're telling you to stop that project and go and do what is right. Under normal circumstances, if it does not follow the normal setback, you are meant to correct those errors. So if it means pulling down your building, you have to pull it down. But because Lagos is wired in a way where money can change hands and you can get what you want to be done. So that's why we have a situation where people are cutting corners everywhere and they are getting their building approval. So it's not as if they are not getting approval. They're getting approvals doing the right things. But when they go to site, that's when the magic happens.
Magic. Interesting. These are some of the reasons why it's not really encouraged to buy houses that you know nothing about how it started.
Absolutely.
How about trees? If I'm going to have trees in my compound, so how many distance should be in front?
Naturally, it should be part of the planning of the estate. So ahead of time, we should have planted trees because most of these developers have bought these properties over the years and are selling it. But you have a situation where we're just freestyling what we are selling. There is no proper layout. So, okay, I bought a hectare of land and then I'm just selling. So it's when I've sold out, I now come to do allocation, and that's when I'm now trying to cut out, okay, this is your own plot, this is your own plot. We've not done the layout for drainage. We've not done the road layout. We've not done, okay, where is waste going to be? Where is the water going to be? And all. So all this, that's why we have poorly planned estates.
And it just looks all messy.
Yeah,
I know
so
some estates. I just don't want to mention names.
yeah, so trees naturally should be incorporated into our living areas, but we have a situation where we are paving everywhere, interlocking everywhere, putting quota everywhere, and we are reducing our quality of life because the trees help with oxygen. So if there's the absence of that, they also cannot filter the carbon dioxide that are produced from our kitchens, from the cars and everything. So all those come into play.
And aside oxygen, it also provides shades. And with those shades, your environment can be a
it
little
also
bit
helps
cool.
with buffering noise and a lot dust, everything. So if we
Trees are
have more
important.
of them, it reduces noise, dust. It can serve as a buffer for all of those.
Thank you. Now, what's the standard approval? Because these days, I mean, having a swimming pool in your house is a necessity. However, because it's now becoming a demand, it helps to just skyrocket a price of property that is supposed to be maybe 100 million. It then becomes 150 because it get pool. And you see the pool. The pool is like soccer.
I mean, a lot of them are like that. That's because we're trying to manage space, maximize space. You're trying to have garden, you're trying to have swimming pool, you're trying to have outdoor bar, and you still want to park cars there. So definitely the swimming pool, you can't be trying to fit
L
in
shape,
a
B
pool.
shape.
Yeah, you can't be trying to fit in a pool inside the 300 square meter property if you were to follow the standard setbacks and everything.
Okay.
At the end of the day, you're just going to be having, like you said, the soak away. So these days you have pools that are like 1 meter by 3 meters. I mean, those should be for kids.
What's like the distance between the fence and the pool and the building to the pool that people should look out for?
Okay, so normally standards should be 1 meter from the wall. So it should be at least 1 meter away from the wall, 1 meter to 1.5 meters away from the wall. So situations where you have the pool very close to the fence is wrong because it could also affect the structural integrity of the fence, having the pool very close to the wall. So that's why it should be distanced away from the pool. So it must not necessarily follow certain dimensions, but there are normal safety standards that we follow when designing pools.
What's the weirdest mistake you see in a building project?
Okay, so one of the weirdest mistakes I've seen in a building project is having a balcony without a door leading to the balcony. So I saw it at a hotel in Otta. That was sometime in 2019. So there was the balcony, but there was no door.
So
till tomorrow, I am still yet to understand the functionality of that balcony.
What are the estates and areas that you recommend that you've seen and you're like, I like this environment, the layout, the structure, everything is well planned in Lagos?
Okay, I would say Pinnock Estate because serious planning went into the estate. To a large extent, I would say Banana Island too. Banana Island is
it's
also
still my dream estate.
It's properly planned. It's properly planned. Like you see that there's a thought process to it. So because for a proper estate, a well planned estate, drainage, road networks, lighting, waste management, and then even water supply, all this, they must work effectively. If one does not work, it affects the other one. If your road networks are not good, accessibility becomes a challenge. If your water is bad, then quality of life is affected. If you do not have drainage, there's a high tendency that there will be flooding. So all of this affects how an estate works, and functionality is very important when working with all these facilities when it comes to planning an estate.
What are the areas that if you will not buy a house in?
Okay, Agunji, poorly planned. I think Osapa, London is close to it. Poorly
But that's where
planned.
we have Pinnock
Yeah.
and some other nice estates.
No, there are some estates that are properly planned,
Yeah,
but
that's
then
true. Osapa London as an estate itself.
yeah, so
True.
there are some parts of that of Upper London, they are poorly planned, no drainage, the road is tight. We have
True.
commercial
Flooding.
activities along the road and everything. So those areas, the quality of life, quality of water is also very poor. So those are some areas that I think I would not advise any potential clients to get properties there, because I don't think there is any long-term plan to fix all those issues that we've raised up.
And I don't think there's even any way they'll be able to fix it without some people losing their property.
Yes, some people would have to lose their property.
And then it becomes a problem.
Yeah.
What's the common mistakes that is among the trend in terms of it's aesthetically pleasing but not functional in architectural designs you've seen so far?
Okay, so one that we see here is tiny windows, very tiny windows. We stay in a tropical area, so it's very hot. So naturally, we need larger windows so that you can properly ventilate the space. But then another mistake that we too do is also the use of massive, there are some buildings you see and they have all large windows, like windows that could be like 2.4 by
Yes, large
2.4,
glass
very large
windows.
windows. So it also increases the cost of cooling if there are no sun, if you don't have these sun blockers that you put on the glass that reduce the radiation coming into the space, that means the space becomes hotter. So those are some errors that we see. Then even functionality in the flow of, like we said earlier, the how you are able to access the space. So for example, now for a space where, like a supermarket or a shopping mall, you should have some basic circulation elements like the staircase, you should have the ramp, you should have elevators if it is going beyond 3 floors, 4 floors. But you see that some of these are overlooked when it's eventually time to move to site and start construction. So some of all these tiny errors, then also like another thing I think people do not really look out for is in their houses, we've mentioned ventilation, then quality of materials used. Because I think most times because they are not there on site to check, the developers use
Any kind.
any type of material, and at the end of the day, as the clients now, you're having to maintain and maintain over and over again. It could be plumbing, it could be painting, it could be screeding and all. So those are just some of the things you need, like quality control, to check for you before buying or purchasing a property.
Thank you. So buying a house is really fancy, just cool, stress-free and all of that. However, long term is no doubt that there are recurring costs that is preventable, like having to rescreed the way you mentioned, having to repaint, having to change the plumbing because it was poorly done, and even things like the house not being functional. I've had a conversation with someone who told me, I want to buy a house for my mom. And because of our conversation, he mentioned that his mom uses wheelchair. There are few houses in Lagos that have a ramp. So if he decides to build for her now, he will be able to put a ramp in that house as well as the stairs. So building is just like the perfect thing to do if you want peace for your major investment. This is like your major asset. It's not something that you should just shop off like you're shopping for a wine. If someone buys a land right now, how long is it going to take to build a house?
Okay, so it depends on, there are several factors that affect that. So it could be the size of building, the type of building, and the funds available. So
Okay.
those are some factors that could affect the length or the duration of construction for a project. So are funds readily available to take us from
100%
the beginning
to finish.
to finish?
And extra funds are available. It's just a swampy land, and I want twin duplex.
Okay, twin duplex. So on the average, it should take us 3 to 5 months to finish everything.
Okay.
So that is excluding the approval stage. because the
Okay.
approval stage where we submit the documents to allow SAR to get approval, that could take, like I said, 1 to 3 months. And for the construction phase now, we could take 3 to 5 months to finish up. Last year, we handled it 3 units of terrace apartment. That's 2 units of 4 bedroom and 1 unit of 3 bedroom. So the average cost for the carcass was 42 million naira for the 3 units.
Mm-hmm.
That's one block of terrace, 3 units of terraces, 4 bedroom, 3 bedroom in the middle, and another 4 bedroom. So it was 42 million naira. At
Okay.
that time, cement was about 4,500 naira. This was last year, early last year. But coming into this year, cement is about 9,500. As at now, cement is 9,500.
Mm-hmm.
So which means it has doubled. So if we were using 42 million naira last year, just budget about 100 million naira on the average, because the market forces
For carcass.
are not kind. Both cost of labor, cost of materials, everything has just gone away. And I blame it to a certain extent on the economy and also on the fact that there are no regulators for the
Prices.
prices. So
Mm.
I would not say at the state at which we are in the country now is very fragile. So you can't exactly pinpoint and say, okay, I'm dropping 50 million naira for my project. It could increase to 60 million, it could
Or even
increase to
double.
65, depending on how the dollar to naira rate is. So all those affect like your budget. So I would not say you have a fixed budget, but you could just keep a flexible budget and add maybe an extra 5 million or 7 million just for miscellaneous expenses that might come up along the way.
What's your take on container houses? Do you think that's the future of Lagos real estate?
Yeah, I think there's a future in container houses because it gives flexibility in the use of spaces, because you can decide to play with the arrangement, play with the forms after a
Mm-hmm.
while. So let's say we have a residential property and we want to move it to another place. It's easily to just uncouple
Change your
everything and
location.
change locations. You can convert it to a mobile home.
Oh,
So
nice.
as the container architecture is also thriving in Lagos. So if you have eyes on the ground and ears on the ground, you see that container architecture, people are trying to implement it in the use of commercial spaces. We've not really seen it in the residential aspect, in the residential area of Lagos, but for commercial spaces like lounge, bars,
It's
restaurants, we're
thriving.
seeing more of that. But I think over time, with understanding how containers work, I think
It will
developers
become
will
to
start
residential.
looking into
And I think
the
that's cool though,
residential.
because I mean, if I buy land in Nikon Town, I can just insert my house there
Absolutely.
while I'm
So,
trying to save up funds for rebuilding.
yeah,
And
so
the moment I buy my land in Banana Island, off I go.
yeah, definitely. So it gives flexibility to,
That's cool.
like, even in managing how you play with your spatial arrangements. So like the spaces, you can easily move these like spaces around, and like if you're bored with the setup, the facade,
Just
you can
change.
easily play with it and change it.
Mm.
So the container architecture like is the future of real estate. So
What
there's
are
a
the
future in it.
challenges of the container house in this topography, in this region?
Okay, so if not properly insulated, it will cause a lot of heat, which will
Mm-hmm.
also stress your cooling, will stress cooling
Okay.
of the space. So if you're going to deal with any container setup for any kind of space, you have to properly insulate it. So
Hmm.
insulation is a key aspect, especially when it is hot in the summer. So cooling, because it will affect your cooling. So
How about security?
it's quite secure, very
Okay.
secure, very secure. So containers are secure.
If you have 1 hectare of land,
Yeah.
what will you do with it? To build a community.
Okay, if I have 1 hectare of land, I think I'll design a properly functional mini estate.
Mm-hmm.
So the mini estate where you can have everything within the estate. So that is, there's the residential part,
Mm-hmm.
there's the recreational part,
Mm-hmm.
there's also the religious part.
Mm-hmm.
Then also we could have workspaces, because I think another part that we tend to exclude is there could be distractions at home.
True.
What if I just want, there's a place within the estate where I can go, there's Wi-Fi, there's internet, I can just browse, do my work. I can still work from home, but within my estate, so I can live, work, play. So most times we say live, work, play within the estate, but there is no place where I can work,
Work.
because if I'm still at home, let's say I'm staying with my parents now, they are still calling me to come and wash plates. But if I'm at the cafe within the estate, I can still get work done. Come back home, there's still the recreational area. I can still fellowship with other people. If I'm a Muslim, my mosque is still within the estate. So I think these are some of those things that just increase the quality of life. So it has to be an actual live, work, and play.
What's a final take for people that want to, that after watching this video decide I will build myself?
Okay, so if you want to build yourself, I would, like I mentioned earlier, first things first is to do a proper search and allows. Know that, okay, your land is safe and secure from government acquisition. Then finally, ensure that your papers are genuine. After that, you can meet an architect like me, and then we'll handle the design of your building. It could be a residential, commercial, religious institution. Once that is done and we've gotten approval from the necessary authorities, then it's now time to move into site. Once we move into site, we start construction of your project. And depending on how cash flows, within 3 to 5 months, we could deliver if it's a residential. Within 6 months to 1 year, we could deliver if it's a commercial project, depending on the scale and the size. So is there are just major there are some checklists that there are some boxes you must tick for your project to go from point A to point C, which is completion. So that's all I'll say.
If you've watched this video to the end, chances are you will enjoy watching videos on this channel. Please do well to watch other videos. Share your comments, what you think, what you agree with, and the things that you do not agree with that was said on this video. Feel free to share with your friends, like this video, and hit the subscribe button. Thank you, and see you again next week Thursday. Bye.